The Paris tickets were still warm from the printer when my wife Mira looked up from her laptop and delivered the words that would change everything. "You're too predictable, Rylan." I stood there in our gleaming kitchen, holding what I thought was a romantic surprise, watching her perfect manicured fingers dance across her keyboard without even glancing at the envelope in my hands. The morning light streaming through our smart home's automated blinds caught the diamond wedding ring I'd saved 3 months to buy her 5 years ago. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked, setting the tickets on the marble countertop. She finally looked up, her green eyes scanning me like I was a software bug she needed to debug. "You always do exactly what I expect. Flowers on Friday, coffee in bed on Sunday, and now—" She gestured at the envelope. "Let me guess. Anniversary trip? Paris? The same restaurant you've been bookmarking on your browser for weeks?" My chest tightened. I'd been so careful, or so I thought. "I wanted to surprise you." "That's the problem, honey. You can't surprise me anymore. I know your patterns better than your own code." She closed the laptop with a soft click. "It's like being married to a very sweet, very boring algorithm." Mira stood up, smoothing her designer dress, the black one I'd bought her for her promotion last year. At 35, she still turned heads when she walked into a room. Marketing executive, corner office, 6-figure salary, everything I'd admired about her when we met. "I'm late for my meeting with the Henderson account," she said, grabbing her purse. "We'll talk about this later, okay?" She kissed my cheek, a quick, efficient peck, and headed for the door. I heard her heels clicking on our hardwood floors, then the garage door opening and closing. I picked up the tickets. 2 first-class seats to Paris. The hotel I'd researched for months. Reservations at the restaurant where she'd always wanted to eat. Too predictable. I walked to my home office and sat down at my computer setup. 3 monitors glowed to life, displaying lines of code for the security software that paid for our lifestyle. Rylan Ventor, software engineer, 38 years old, apparently as exciting as watching paint dry. My phone buzzed. A text from Jonas, my best friend since college. "Coffee later? Need to talk." Jonas was the only person who'd ever questioned my marriage to Mira. Ex-cop turned private investigator. He had instincts about people that made me uncomfortable sometimes, especially when those instincts involved my wife. I typed back, "Sure, usual place, 2 p.m. Then I opened my laptop and did something I'd never done before. I accessed our joint bank accounts, all of them. Credit cards, savings, the investment portfolio Mira managed. Being a software engineer had its advantages. I'd written half the security protocols these banks used. What I found made my stomach drop. Charges I didn't recognize. Expensive dinners for 2 when she told me she was working late. Hotel rooms in the city when she was supposedly at conferences. A jewelry purchase from last month, something I'd never seen her wear. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. My predictable little world was cracking apart, and I hadn't even noticed. My phone rang. Mira's sister, Arden. "Hey, Rylan, is Mira around?" "She left for work." "Why?" Arden paused. She was 33, fierce, and had never particularly liked me. But she was family, and family meant something to her. "I was at Pilates yesterday, and I saw her car at that new gym downtown, the expensive one. She told me she hated working out." "Maybe she's trying something new." "Maybe." Another pause. "Rylan, you know I care about you, right? Even if I don't always show it?" "Yeah, Arden, I know." "Just keep your eyes open, okay?" The line went quiet. I sat there holding my phone, looking at the bank statements on my screen, thinking about my wife's words that morning. Too predictable. Well, maybe it was time to change that. I spent the next hour doing what I did best, digging through data, social media posts, credit card statements, phone records I could access through our shared account. I built a timeline, cross-referenced locations, mapped patterns. By noon, I had a clear picture. My wife was having an affair. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The man's name was Keaton Marin, 36 years old, owned 3 fitness centers around the city, drove a Porsche, and posted shirtless selfies on Instagram like he was auditioning for a magazine cover. Everything I wasn't. I found photos of them together at restaurants I couldn't afford, even on my engineer's salary. Pictures of weekend trips I'd been told were work retreats. Messages on social platforms that made my hands shake. The worst part? How long it had been going on. 6 months, maybe longer. While I'd been working late to afford surprises like Paris trips, she'd been creating a whole separate life. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mira. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. I stared at the message, then at the evidence spread across my screens. According to Keaton's Instagram story, posted 20 minutes ago, he was at some upscale bar downtown, tagged with date night with my favorite person. I took a screenshot. Then I did something that surprised even me. I started planning. Jonas was already at our usual coffee shop when I arrived, a small place called Grind that served coffee strong enough to wake the sleepy. He looked up from his newspaper as I approached, his cop instincts immediately reading my expression. "You look like someone who just found out Santa isn't real," he said. I sat down across from him. Worse, I found out my wife thinks I am. Predictable? Among other things. I pulled out my phone and showed him the evidence I'd compiled. Jonas had taught me how to be thorough back in college when he was studying criminal justice and I was learning to code. He scrolled through everything methodically, his face growing darker with each screen. "How long have you known?" "Since this morning. She told me I was too predictable, then I started digging." "What are you going to do?" I leaned back in my chair, looking around the coffee shop. Young couples sharing pastries, students with laptops, normal people living normal lives. "I'm going to stop being predictable." Jonas set down my phone. "Rylan, I know you're hurt, but don't do anything stupid. Divorce lawyers exist for a reason." "I'm not talking about anything illegal. I'm talking about giving my wife exactly what she asked for." I picked up my coffee, surprised by how steady my hands were. "She wants unpredictable? She's about to get it." "What's the first move?" I smiled, and it felt strange on my face. "I'm going to return some gifts." That evening, while Mira was out with Keaton, I systematically went through our house and collected every present I'd ever given her. The jewelry, the designer clothes, the expensive handbags, the art pieces for her office. Everything I could remember buying, everything that represented my predictable, boring love. I packed it all in boxes, printed out receipts where I had them, and loaded everything into my car. Then I drove to Keaton's penthouse. The building was one of those glass towers that screamed money. I walked into the lobby like I belonged there, carrying my boxes with confidence I didn't know I possessed. "Delivery for Keaton Marin," I told the doorman. "I'll call up." "No need. He's expecting this." I took the elevator to the 15th floor and found his door. I set the boxes down, pulled out a note I'd written, and taped it to the top box. "Keaton, she said you know how to make her feel alive. Here's everything she'll need to start fresh. She's all yours now." The predictable husband. I rang the doorbell and walked back to the elevator, timing it perfectly. As the doors closed, I saw Keaton open his door and stare down at the boxes. My phone buzzed as I reached the parking garage. A text from Mira. "Almost done with work. Miss you." I typed back, "Take your time. I'm busy making some changes." For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like myself again. Not the predictable husband, not the boring algorithm, just Rylan Ventor, and I was done playing by everyone else's rules. The real surprise was just beginning. I was eating cereal and reading code documentation when Mira came home the next morning. She looked tired, her makeup smudged, wearing the same dress from yesterday. She moved through our kitchen like she was walking through fog. "Long night?" I asked without looking up from my laptop. "The Henderson presentation ran forever. I ended up crashing at Lissa's place." She poured herself coffee with shaking hands. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep. Too many ideas running through my head." She sat down across from me, and I could smell unfamiliar cologne mixed with her perfume. "About what?" "Surprises." I closed my laptop and looked at her directly. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about being predictable." "Rylan, I didn't mean—" "No, you were right. I have been boring, routine, same patterns, same responses." I stood up and rinsed my bowl in the sink. "But I'm working on that." My phone rang. "Jonas." "Morning," I answered. "You need to see something. Can you meet me at the office?" I looked at Mira, who was staring into her coffee cup like it held answers. "Give me an hour." "Rylan," Mira called as I headed toward the door. "Are we okay?" I turned back to her. She looked smaller somehow, sitting in our expensive kitchen in yesterday's clothes. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. "We're exactly what we've always been," I said. "You're just noticing it now." Jonas ran his PI business out of a small office above a sandwich shop downtown. The walls were covered with certificates, old police commendations, and a whiteboard that currently showed a timeline of my marriage. "When did you make this?" I asked, staring at the board. "Last night. After you left, I couldn't stop thinking about the timing." He pointed to different markers. "Look at this. Her behavior changes started 8 months ago, not 6, right around the time you got that promotion." I studied the timeline. Late nights, mysterious expenses, new clothes, sudden interest in fitness. She was planning this. Gets worse. I made some calls. Jonas handed me a folder. Your boy Keaton has a pattern. 3 relationships in the past 5 years, all with married women, all ended the same way. I opened the folder. Photos, social media screenshots, even what looked like private investigator reports. You had him investigated? I had him researched. There's a difference. Jonas sat on the edge of his desk. He's a predator, Rylan. Targets successful women in struggling marriages, promises them excitement, then moves on when things get complicated. I flipped through the evidence. So Mira's just another conquest. Looks like it. But here's the interesting part. He pulled out another sheet. His business is in trouble, 2 of his gyms are behind on rent, and he's got some serious creditors breathing down his neck. You think he's after her money? I think he's after whatever he can get. Jonas crossed his arms. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I closed the folder and looked at my best friend. Remember in college when you used to say the best defense is a good offense? Yeah. Time to go on offense. I spent the rest of the morning at my computer, but not writing code. I was accessing accounts, changing passwords, and transferring funds. Everything legal, everything within my rights as a joint account holder. By noon, I'd moved our savings into a separate account, one that required both signatures for withdrawals. I'd canceled all the credit cards and ordered new ones sent to Jonas's office. I'd even used my access to our smart home system to change all the entry codes. Then I drove to Mira's office. Her marketing firm occupied 2 floors of a downtown high-rise. I'd been there dozens of times for company parties, always feeling underdressed and out of place among the creative types with their expensive clothes and casual arrogance. Today felt different. Is Mira available? I asked her assistant, a young woman named Tara who'd always treated me like I was there to fix the computers. She's in a meeting, but I'll wait. I sat in the reception area, watching the office buzz with activity. Account executives rushing between meetings, designers clustered around monitors, the constant hum of people who thought they were changing the world by selling products. Mira appeared 20 minutes later, walking out of a conference room with 3 colleagues. She saw me and froze. Rylan, what are you doing here? Thought I'd surprise you. Take you to lunch. Her colleagues exchanged glances. I recognized them from office parties. Lissa, who'd supposedly hosted Mira last night, and 2 others whose names I'd never bothered to remember. I'm really busy today, Mira said. Maybe we could... I insist. I stood up, smiling. Besides, we need to talk about our accounts. The color drained from her face. Our accounts? The credit cards aren't working. Thought you should know. Lissa stepped forward. Mira, if this isn't a good time... No, it's fine. Mira grabbed her purse. Let's go, Rylan. We walked to the elevator in silence. I could feel her tension like electricity in the air. What did you do? She asked as soon as the doors closed. Secured our assets. You know, responsible husband stuff. I watched the floor numbers tick down. Very predictable of me, really. Rylan, you can't just what? Manage our joint finances, protect our shared resources. The elevator opened into the lobby. I thought you'd appreciate me taking initiative. We walked to a restaurant across the street, one of those trendy places with small portions and large prices. Mira sat across from me, her hands clenched in her lap. I need access to our accounts, she said. Why? Because I have expenses, responsibilities. I leaned back in my chair. What kind of expenses? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Normal things, gas, groceries, work lunches. Funny thing about work lunches, I said, pulling out my phone. I've been looking at our statements. Lots of expensive dinners for 2 when you were supposedly eating alone. Her face went pale. Rylan. The Meridian Hotel 3 times last month. The Harbor Club twice. That new place on 5th Street. I scrolled through the screenshots I'd prepared. Either you've developed multiple personalities, or you've been lying to me. I can explain. I'm sure you can. You're very creative. I put my phone away. But here's the thing, Mira. I don't want explanations anymore. I want change. What does that mean? It means the predictable husband is taking a vacation, and you're going to figure out how to handle your own expenses. I stood up and dropped a 20 on the table. Enjoy your lunch. I'll see you at home. I walked out, leaving her sitting there, and for the first time in months, I felt like I was winning. My phone started ringing before I reached my car. Mira, then Mira again, then a number I didn't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail. The last message was from Keaton. We need to talk, man. This is getting out of hand. I smiled and deleted it without responding. By the time I got home, Mira's car was already in the driveway. I could hear her inside, talking rapidly on the phone. I used the new entry code to get in and found her in the kitchen, pacing. Can't get into anything. He changed all the codes. She saw me and lowered her voice. I have to go. Problems? I asked. You know exactly what the problems are. She set her phone down with more force than necessary. This is childish, Rylan. Is it? Or is it just unpredictable? You can't lock me out of our own accounts. I didn't lock you out. I secured them. There's a difference. I opened the refrigerator and grabbed a beer. If you need money for legitimate expenses, we can discuss it. Legitimate expenses? Groceries, utilities, actual work functions? I took a sip of beer. Not hotel rooms with your boyfriend. The word hung in the air between us. Mira's face went through several expressions: surprise, anger, then something that looked almost like relief. How long have you known? She asked quietly. Does it matter? It matters to me. I studied her face, looking for some sign of remorse, some hint that she understood what she'd thrown away. All I saw was calculation. Long enough, I said. So what happens now? Now you figure out what you really want, but you do it on your own dime. My phone buzzed. A text from Jonas. Check your email. You're going to love this. I opened my laptop and found a message with several attachments. Photos of Keaton with another woman, taken yesterday evening. Timestamps showed they were together while Mira was supposedly at work. I turned the laptop so Mira could see the screen. Looks like you're not the only one full of surprises. She stared at the photos, her face crumbling. For a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married. Vulnerable, human, real. Then her expression hardened. This doesn't change anything between us. You're right, I said, closing the laptop. It changes everything. I walked upstairs to our bedroom and started packing a suitcase. Not for me, for her. What are you doing? She asked from the doorway. Being unpredictable. I carried the suitcase downstairs and set it by the front door. You wanted excitement, Mira. You wanted something different. Go find it. You can't kick me out of my own house. I'm not kicking you out. I'm giving you what you asked for. I opened the door. Freedom from your boring, predictable husband? She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Who are you? I'm exactly who I've always been. You just stopped paying attention. Mira picked up her suitcase and walked toward the door, then stopped. This isn't over, Rylan. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. She left without another word. I watched her drive away, then went back inside and poured myself another beer. My phone rang. Jonas again. How'd it go? He asked. Phase 1 complete? And Phase 2? I looked around our empty house, at all the expensive things we'd accumulated, all the symbols of our successful life together. Phase 2 is where things get interesting. The next morning brought 3 voicemails, 12 text messages, and one very angry sister-in-law at my front door. Open up, Rylan. Arden's voice carried through the smart home's intercom system. I know you're in there. I was sitting in my office, monitoring the security cameras I'd installed last year. Another predictable husband improvement Mira had barely noticed. Arden stood on my porch in workout clothes, her face flushed with anger. I pressed the intercom button. Morning, Arden. You're up early. Let me in. We need to talk. About what? About my sister sleeping on my couch because her husband lost his mind. I considered this. Arden had always been direct, sometimes brutally so. But she was also fair, and right now, I needed someone in Mira's family to hear the truth. I opened the door. Coffee? I offered as she stormed into my kitchen. I don't want coffee. I want explanations. She sat down at the counter, her dark eyes, so similar to Mira's, fixed on my face. Mira says you've gone crazy. Locked her out of everything, kicked her out of the house, accused her of having an affair. 2 out of 3, I said, pouring myself a cup. I didn't kick her out. I gave her a choice. What choice? I pulled out my laptop and opened the folder of evidence I'd compiled. The choice to stop lying. Arden's expression changed as she scrolled through the photos, bank statements, and timeline Jonas had helped me build. Her face went from angry to confused to something approaching horror. How long? She asked quietly. At least 8 months, maybe longer. She closed the laptop and stared at the counter. I knew something was wrong. She's been different, secretive, but I thought it was work stress. It was stress, all right, just not the kind she told you about. Arden looked up at me. What are you going to do? What would you do? She was quiet for a long moment. probably burn his gym down. Tempting, but illegal. I sat down across from her. I'm thinking more along the lines of public humiliation. Rylan, your sister made me look like a fool for 8 months. She spent our money on another man, lied to everyone we know, and then told me I was too boring to deserve honesty. I leaned forward. I'm done being the understanding husband. Arden studied my face. You're really going to do this. I'm already doing it. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Keaton. We need to meet. Tonight, 8 p.m., Harbor Club Bar. I showed Arden the message. Speak of the devil. Are you going? Wouldn't miss it. The Harbor Club was exactly the kind of place Keaton would choose for a confrontation. Expensive, dimly lit, full of people who thought they were important. I arrived 15 minutes early and claimed a table with a clear view of the entrance. Keaton walked in at exactly 8 o'clock, scanning the room like he was entering a business meeting. He was shorter than I'd expected, but built like someone who spent serious time in the gym. Designer clothes, perfect hair, the kind of confident swagger that probably worked on a lot of women. He spotted me and walked over, his expression carefully neutral. Rylan. He extended his hand. I ignored it. Keaton. He sat down across from me, signaling the waitress for a drink. This is awkward. Is it? Look, I know you're upset, but we're both adults here. These things happen. I almost laughed. These things? Marriages end. People grow apart. It doesn't have to be ugly. The waitress brought him a whiskey, something expensive, based on his nod of approval. I stuck with my beer. You're right, I said. It doesn't have to be ugly, but it's going to be. His confident expression flickered. What's that supposed to mean? It means I know about your financial problems, the gyms that are behind on rent, the creditors, the pattern of targeting married women. I pulled out my phone and showed him Jonas's research. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out? Keaton's face went pale as he scrolled through the information. Where did you get this? I'm a software engineer, Keaton. I'm very good at finding information. He set my phone down carefully. What do you want? I want you to understand something. Mira isn't just some bored housewife you can manipulate and discard. She's my wife, and I don't share. She came to me, man. I didn't pursue her. Really? I pulled up more photos on my phone. Because these pictures from last night suggest you're pursuing several women at once. He looked at the photos of himself with another woman, then back at me. You're having me followed? I'm protecting my interests. Keaton finished his whiskey in one gulp. Okay, you've made your point. I'll back off. Too late for that. What do you mean? I stood up and dropped a 20 on the table. I mean you picked the wrong marriage to wreck, and now you're going to find out what happens when the boring husband stops being predictable. I walked out, leaving him sitting there with his empty glass and his confusion. The next morning, I put Phase 3 into motion. I started with Keaton's social media accounts. Not hacking, that would be illegal. But I had screenshots of his messages with Mira, photos of him with multiple women, evidence of his financial troubles. I created anonymous accounts on every platform he used and began systematically exposing his pattern of behavior. Then I called the health department. I'd like to report some concerns about hygiene violations at 3 fitness facilities, I told the inspector. I'd done my research. Keaton's gyms had legitimate code violations, nothing dangerous, but enough to trigger inspections, fines, and bad publicity. All perfectly legal, all completely justified. By noon, his Instagram was flooded with comments from women sharing their own stories about his behavior. By 2 p.m., health inspectors were at all 3 of his gyms. My phone rang. Mira. What are you doing to him? She demanded. Absolutely nothing illegal. Rylan, this has to stop. Does it? Because I'm just getting started. This isn't like you. You're right. The old me would have suffered in silence, maybe filed for divorce quietly, split everything 50-50. I looked at my computer screen, watching Keaton's carefully crafted image crumble in real time. But you wanted someone unpredictable. Congratulations. I never wanted this. What did you want, Mira? Really? She was quiet for a long moment. I wanted to feel alive again. And how's that working out for you? The line went quiet. I hung up and got back to work. That evening, Jonas came by with takeout and updates. Health department found violations at 2 of his gyms, he reported, spreading Chinese food across my kitchen counter. Nothing major, but enough to shut them down for a week while they fix everything. What about the social media campaign? Brutal. Apparently you weren't the first husband to get suspicious. 3 other women have come forward with similar stories. I opened a container of lo mein. Think it'll be enough? To ruin his reputation? Probably. To get him to back off from Mira? Jonas shrugged. Depends how much he really cares about her versus how much he cares about saving his own skin. My money's on saving his skin. What about Mira? I considered this while eating. What about her? She's still your wife, Rylan. Legally, financially, emotionally, this affects her too. She should have thought about that 8 months ago. Jonas studied my face. You're enjoying this. Yeah, I am. That worries me. Why? Because the Rylan I know doesn't enjoy hurting people, even people who hurt him first. I set down my chopsticks. The Rylan you know was a doormat. He worked 60-hour weeks to buy his wife expensive presents while she was spending his money on another man. He believed her lies, ignored the obvious signs, and let himself be made into a fool. And now? Now he's done being predictable. My phone buzzed. A text from Keaton. You win. I'm out. Leave me alone. I showed Jonas the message. That was easier than expected, he said. Too easy. I pulled up Keaton's social media accounts. He'd deleted most of his posts from the past few hours, but the damage was already done. His business pages were flooded with negative reviews and comments. Think he means it? I think he's scared, but scared men do unpredictable things. As if summoned by my words, my security system chimed. Motion detected in the backyard. I pulled up the camera feeds on my laptop. A figure in dark clothes was moving along the fence line, trying to stay out of range of the floodlights. Call the police, I told Jonas. Already on it. I watched the figure approach my back door, then stop and look directly at one of my cameras. Even in the dim light, I recognized Keaton's face. He held up a crowbar and smiled. This just got interesting, I said. The motion-activated floodlights blazed to life, turning my backyard into a stage. Keaton froze like an actor caught without his lines, the crowbar still in his hand. I pressed the intercom button for the outdoor speakers. Evening, Keaton. Lovely night for breaking and entering? He looked around wildly, trying to locate the camera. Let me in, Rylan. We need to talk. We talked yesterday. You said you were backing off. I changed my mind. Sorry to hear that. I activated the sprinkler system. Water erupted from hidden nozzles all across the yard, soaking Keaton in seconds. He cursed and ran for the back door, but I'd already triggered the security locks. You can't hide in there forever, he shouted. I'm not hiding. I'm documenting. The security cameras were recording everything in high definition. Keaton with the crowbar, Keaton trying to break my door, Keaton making threats, all perfectly captured for the police report. Sirens wailed in the distance. Sounds like your ride's here, I announced through the speakers. Keaton looked toward the street, then back at my house. For a moment, I thought he might try to run. Instead, he threw the crowbar at my back door and stormed toward the front yard. This isn't over, he yelled. Yes, it is, I replied, but he was already gone. The police arrived 5 minutes later. I met them at the front door with my laptop, the security footage already queued up. Attempted breaking and entering, I explained to the officer, a tired-looking woman in her 40s. Everything's recorded. She watched the footage twice, taking notes. You know this man? He's been having an affair with my wife. I confronted him yesterday, told him to back off. And tonight he shows up with a crowbar. Apparently he doesn't handle rejection well. She closed her notepad. We'll file a report. If he comes back, call immediately. After the police left, Jonas and I sat in my kitchen, watching the security footage again. He's desperate, Jonas observed. Good. Desperate people make mistakes. They also do dangerous things. I looked at my friend. You think I should back off? I think you should be careful. This guy's already shown he's willing to escalate. So am I. Jonas finished his beer and stood up. Just remember, Rylan, the goal is to win, not to become something you'll regret later. After he left, I sat alone in my house, thinking about his words. The old Rylan would have been terrified by tonight's events. He would have called Mira, begged her to talk to Keaton, tried to de-escalate the situation. But the old Rylan was gone. In his place was someone harder, smarter, and much less predictable. I pulled up my laptop and began planning Phase 4. The video went viral overnight. I'd edited the security footage into a 3-minute compilation. Keaton sneaking around my yard, brandishing the crowbar, getting soaked by the sprinklers, and finally throwing his tantrum when the police sirens started. I set it to dramatic music and posted it to every social media platform I could find. The title, When Your Wife's Boyfriend Doesn't Handle Rejection Well. By morning, it had been shared over 10,000 times. My phone started ringing at 6 a.m. Reporters, neighbors, random strangers who'd seen the video. I let them all go to voicemail and focused on monitoring the fallout. Keaton's business pages were being destroyed. 1-star reviews, angry comments, people sharing their own stories about his behavior. The health department violations were just the beginning. Now he was dealing with a full-scale public relations disaster. At 8 a.m., Mira called. "Take it down," she said without preamble. "Good morning to you, too." "Rylan, I'm serious. Take the video down." "Why would I do that?" "Because this is insane. You've ruined his business, humiliated him publicly, and now you're making us both look like a joke." I pulled up the view count on the video. 15,000 and climbing. "Funny thing about that," I said. "Most of the comments are actually supportive of me. Seems like people don't have much sympathy for home wreckers and attempted burglars." He wasn't trying to burglarize anything. He was upset. Upset enough to bring a crowbar to my house at night. That's called attempted breaking and entering, Mira. It's a felony. You pushed him to this." I exposed his pattern of behavior and protected my assets. He chose to escalate it to criminal activity. She was quiet for a moment. "Where does this end, Rylan?" "That's up to you." "What do you mean?" "I mean you have a choice to make. Your husband or your boyfriend. But you can't have both." "It's not that simple." "Sure it is. You pick one, and I stop making your life complicated. And if I pick him, then you get to find out what happens when I really stop being predictable." I hung up and went back to monitoring my social media feeds. The video was being picked up by local news stations now. My phone buzzed with interview requests. At noon, Jonas arrived with coffee and a concerned expression. "You need to see this," he said, handing me a printed email. It was from a lawyer representing Keaton Marin, demanding I remove all defamatory content and cease my harassment campaign immediately. "They're threatening to sue," Jonas said. "For what? Posting security footage of him trying to break into my house?" "They're claiming you've damaged his business through false and malicious statements." I laughed. "What false statements?" I posted video evidence of his criminal behavior. "The social media campaign about his affairs, all documented with screenshots and witness statements." I pulled up my files. "Everything I've posted is factual and provable." Jonas sat down across from me. "Rylan, I'm worried you're getting in over your head." "I'm a software engineer, Jonas. Documentation is what I do." "This isn't code. These are people's lives." "Yeah, mine included." I looked at my friend. He came to my house with a crowbar. He threatened me. He's been sleeping with my wife for 8 months. At what point do I get to fight back? You are fighting back. Maybe too effectively. Before I could respond, my security system chimed. Someone at the front door. I pulled up the camera feed and saw a woman I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, professional clothes, holding a briefcase. "Process server," Jonas said, looking over my shoulder. I opened the door. "Rylan Ventor?" "That's me." She handed me a manila envelope. "You've been served." I waited until she left, then opened the envelope. Temporary restraining order, filed by Keaton Marin, claiming I was stalking and harassing him. "Well," I said, showing Jonas the papers, "this is new." "What are you going to do?" "What any reasonable person would do. I'm going to call my lawyer." The lawyer's office was in one of those downtown buildings that charged rent by the square foot of marble in the lobby. Patricia Hendricks had handled our house purchase and will preparation. Competent, expensive, and not easily impressed. She read through the restraining order twice before looking up at me. "This is interesting," she said. "Interesting how?" "He's claiming you've been stalking him, posting defamatory content, and interfering with his business." She flipped through the pages. "But his own sworn statement admits he came to your house with a crowbar." "So?" "So it's hard to claim someone is stalking you when you're the one showing up at their house with weapons." Patricia pulled out a legal pad and started taking notes. "Tell me everything from the beginning." I spent an hour walking her through the timeline. Mira's affair, the financial evidence, my response, Keaton's escalation. She took notes methodically, asking clarifying questions. "You've been thorough," she said when I finished. "Is that good or bad?" "It's good for your case, potentially bad for your marriage." She set down her pen. "Rylan, I have to ask, what's your endgame here?" "I want them to leave me alone." "Do you want to save your marriage?" I considered this. 3 days ago, the answer would have been yes. Now, after everything I'd learned, everything I'd seen, I want my wife to choose, I said finally. "And if she chooses him?" "Then I want a divorce that doesn't leave me broke and humiliated." Patricia nodded. "I can work with that. As for this restraining order, we'll fight it. His own evidence undermines his claims." "What about his threats to sue?" "Let him try. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation, and you've got video evidence of everything you've posted. I left the lawyer's office feeling more confident, but my phone was buzzing with missed calls. 3 from Mira, 2 from numbers I didn't recognize. The voicemails were increasingly frantic. Rylan, please call me back. This is getting out of hand. The reporters are calling my office. My boss wants to see me tomorrow. Please, just call me. We need to talk. I deleted them all and drove home. My security system showed no activity, but I noticed something different as I pulled into the driveway. My neighbor's house, the one with the perfect lawn and the gossip-prone wife, had a news van parked in front of it. As I got out of my car, a reporter approached with a cameraman in tow. Mr. Ventor, Channel 7 News, can we get a statement about the viral video? No comment. What about your wife's relationship with Mr. Marin? I stopped walking and looked directly at the camera. My wife is an adult who can make her own choices. Mr. Marin is a man who came to my house with a crowbar. The video speaks for itself. Are you planning to file for divorce? I'm planning to go inside my house and eat dinner. I walked to my front door, ignoring their follow-up questions. Once inside, I pulled up the news station's website and found their story already posted. Local man's revenge. Video goes viral after wife's affair. The comments section was brutal for Mira and Keaton. Good for him. About time someone fought back. That guy with the crowbar looks like a total creep. Why do women always go for the obvious losers? My phone rang. Arden. Are you watching the news? She asked. Just saw it online. Mira's a mess. She's been crying all day. Where is she? Still at my place. She's afraid to go anywhere because of the reporters. I felt a flicker of something, guilt maybe, or sympathy. But then I remembered 8 months of lies, of being made to feel boring and predictable while she built a secret life with another man. She created this situation, I said. I know, but she's still my sister. And she's still my wife, technically. Arden was quiet for a moment. What do you want from her, Rylan? I want her to be honest, for once. About what? About what she really wants. Not what she thinks she should want. Not what makes her feel guilty or excited or alive. What she actually wants. And if she wants him, then she can have him. But she can't have both of us. After Arden hung up, I sat in my empty house thinking about choices and consequences. The old Rylan would have been horrified by the media attention, the public humiliation, the way this private matter had become entertainment for strangers. But the old Rylan had been a fool. My security system chimed. Motion in the backyard. I pulled up the cameras, expecting to see another reporter or maybe Keaton making another stupid decision. Instead, I saw Mira walking across my yard, moving carefully to avoid the motion sensors. She knew the system almost as well as I did. I watched her approach the back door, then use her key, the one I hadn't changed yet, to let herself in. Rylan, she called softly. In the living room. She appeared in the doorway, looking smaller than I remembered. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, her face bare of makeup. She looked like the woman I'd married before the promotions and the designer clothes and the secret life. We need to talk, she said. I'm listening. She sat down on the couch across from me, her hands folded in her lap. This has to stop. What has to stop? All of it. The videos, the social media, the reporters. It's destroying everything. Everything was already destroyed, Mira. I'm just making it visible. I know I hurt you. You didn't hurt me. You betrayed me. There's a difference. She flinched. Okay, I betrayed you. But this public humiliation isn't solving anything. It's solving my problem. Which is? I looked at my wife, this woman I'd loved for 5 years, this stranger who'd been lying to me for 8 months. My problem is that I've been living a lie, and now everyone else gets to see the truth. What truth? That my marriage was over before I even knew it was in trouble. That my wife was so bored with me she created an entire secret life. That I was such a predictable, boring husband that she couldn't even be bothered to ask for a divorce before moving on. Mira's eyes filled with tears. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she looked up, her expression was different, rawer, more honest than I'd seen in months. I felt invisible, she said quietly. Like I was disappearing a little more every day. Invisible to who? To you, to myself, to everyone. She wiped her eyes. We had our routines, our schedules, our perfectly organized life, but I felt like I was sleepwalking through it. So you decided to wake up with someone else. I decided to feel something again. And did you? Feel something? She nodded. At first. But then it became another routine, another secret to manage, another way of disappearing. I studied her face, looking for the lie, the manipulation, the calculation I'd grown used to seeing. Instead, I saw exhaustion. What do you want, Mira? I want to fix this. Fix what? Our marriage? Your reputation? Your boyfriend's business? All of it. None of it. I don't know. She looked around our living room, at all the expensive furniture and carefully chosen decorations. I want to stop feeling invisible. Then make a choice. What choice? Him or me, but not both. She stared at me for a long moment. And if I choose you? Then we figure out how to build something real instead of something comfortable. And if I choose him? Then I'll stop making your life complicated, and you can find out if what you had with him was real or just another way of hiding. Mira stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the yard where Keaton had stood with his crowbar just 24 hours ago. He's not who I thought he was, she said quietly. Neither am I. She turned back to me. No, you're not. The man I married would never have done what you've done this week. The woman I married would never have spent 8 months lying to my face. So what does that make us? I looked at my wife, this stranger, this woman who'd shared my bed and my life while building a secret world I knew nothing about. I don't know, I said, but I guess we're about to find out. The next morning brought news I wasn't expecting. Jonas called at 7 a.m., his voice tight with urgency. You need to get down here, now. What's wrong? Just get to my office and bring your lawyer. I found Jonas pacing behind his desk, Patricia Hendricks sitting in the client chair with a folder in her lap, and a woman I didn't recognize standing by the window. Rylan, meet Detective Sarah Martinez, Jonas said. She's with the fraud division. My stomach dropped. Fraud? Detective Martinez stepped forward, extending her hand. Mr. Ventor, we need to ask you some questions about your wife's financial activities. I looked at Patricia, who nodded slightly. It's okay to talk to her, but I'm staying. We all sat down, and Detective Martinez opened her own folder. We've been investigating Mr. Keaton Marin for several months now. Your viral video and the subsequent media attention brought some new information to light. What kind of information? The kind that suggests your wife may have been involved in more than just an affair. She spread several documents across Jonas's desk. Bank statements, insurance forms, legal papers I didn't recognize. 3 weeks ago, your wife took out a life insurance policy on you, Detective Martinez said. A substantial one. She named Mr. Marin as the beneficiary. I stared at the papers. That's impossible. The signature appears to be forged, but it's a very good forgery. Good enough that the insurance company processed it without question. Patricia leaned forward. What are the implications here? 2 days ago, Mrs. Ventor filed a missing person report with the county sheriff's office. She claimed her husband had been acting erratically, had threatened self-harm, and had disappeared. The room went silent. I felt like I was falling through space. I've been at home, I said stupidly. I've been posting on social media. There are news reports. All of which were filed after the missing person report was submitted. Detective Martinez pulled out another document. According to this report, you left home 3 days ago after a violent confrontation with your wife. She was afraid for her safety and hadn't heard from you since. That's completely fabricated. We know. Your security footage and social media activity provide a clear timeline. But if we hadn't been investigating Mr. Marin already, and if your video hadn't gone viral, the implication hit me like a physical blow. They were planning to have me declared missing. Missing and presumed deceased, eventually, with Mr. Marin collecting a very large insurance payout. Jonas had been quiet through this exchange, but now he spoke up. How large? $2 million. I leaned back in my chair, trying to process what I was hearing. Mira was planning to have me... What? Eliminated? We don't have evidence of any plan to harm you physically, Detective Martinez said carefully. But the pattern suggests they were hoping you would disappear, either voluntarily or through some kind of accident. And if I didn't cooperate with their timeline? That's what we're trying to determine. Patricia had been taking notes throughout this conversation. What do you need from my client? Full cooperation with our investigation, access to his financial records, security footage, communication with both his wife and Mr. Marin. Detective Martinez looked at me. And we need you to be very careful for the next few weeks. Careful how? Don't go anywhere alone. Don't meet with either of them without witnesses, and keep documenting everything. After the detective left, the three of us sat in Jonas's office, trying to make sense of what we'd learned. I can't believe Mira would be part of something like this, I said. $2 million is a lot of motivation, Patricia replied, and she's been lying to you for months already. But murder? Maybe not murder, Jonas said. Maybe they were just hoping you'd have some kind of breakdown, disappear voluntarily. People do it all the time. Walk away from their lives, start over somewhere else. Except I'm not the type to run away. No, but you are the type to work yourself into exhaustion, to ignore your health, to put everyone else's needs before your own. Jonas looked at me seriously. If you'd discovered the affair 6 months from now, after they'd had more time to plan, after you'd been isolated from friends and family, who knows what might have happened. I thought about this, about how I'd been working longer hours lately, how I'd been eating poorly, sleeping badly, letting stress build up without dealing with it. If I'd continued on that path, they were counting on me being predictable, I realized. Right up until you weren't, Patricia said. My phone buzzed. A text from Mira. Can we meet tonight? I have something important to tell you. I showed the message to Jonas and Patricia. Don't go, Patricia said immediately. Agreed, Jonas added. If she wants to talk, it can be in a public place with witnesses. I typed back, coffee shop on 5th Street, 2 p.m. Bring Arden. The response came quickly. This needs to be private. Then it doesn't need to happen. I put my phone away and looked at my advisors. What happens now? Now we wait for the investigation to develop, Patricia said, and we prepare for the possibility that your marriage is over in more ways than you realized. That afternoon, I sat in the coffee shop on 5th Street, waiting. Mira never showed up. At 3 p.m., my phone rang. Arden. She's gone, Arden said without preamble. Gone where? I don't know. She packed a bag and left this morning, said she needed to think. Did she say anything else? She was scared, Rylan. Really scared. She kept talking about how everything was spinning out of control. I thought about the insurance policy, the missing person report, the detective's warnings. Arden, I need to tell you something. I explained about the investigation, the forged documents, the pattern Detective Martinez had uncovered. Arden listened in silence. You think she was planning to have you? I don't know what she was planning, but I know she's been lying about more than just the affair. This is insane. Mira wouldn't hurt anyone. Mira spent 8 months creating a secret life while spending my money on another man. At this point, I don't know what she's capable of. Arden was quiet for a long moment. What should I do if she contacts me? Tell her to call Detective Martinez. Tell her to get a lawyer. And tell her that running away just makes everything worse. That evening, I sat in my house with all the security systems activated, thinking about patterns and predictions. For months, maybe years, I'd been following a script Mira had written, the predictable husband, working hard, trusting completely, never asking difficult questions. But somewhere along the way, she'd started writing a different script, one where I disappeared, where she collected insurance money, where she and Keaton started over with my life's work financing their future. The only problem with their plan was that I'd stopped being predictable. My phone rang. Jonas. Detective Martinez wants to see you tomorrow. They found something else. What? Keaton's been researching ways to make accidents look natural. Internet searches, library records, even some books he ordered online. I felt cold. Accidents? Car crashes, household incidents, workplace mishaps, all with one thing in common. They'd be hard to prove weren't accidental. And Mira? Her search history shows she's been looking up grief counseling, widow support groups, and how to claim life insurance benefits. I hung up and walked through my house, checking locks, testing alarms, making sure every camera was recording. Tomorrow, I'd have to face the possibility that the woman I'd married, the woman I'd loved and trusted and built a life with, had been planning my demise. But tonight, I was still alive, still fighting, and still refusing to be predictable. The real question was, what would I do when I found them? And the storm hit at midnight, turning the world outside my windows into a chaos of wind and rain. I was in my office, monitoring security feeds and reviewing the evidence Detective Martinez had shared when my phone buzzed with a weather alert. Severe thunderstorm warning. Power outages likely. Seek shelter immediately. As if summoned by the alert, my security system chimed. Motion detected at the back fence. I pulled up the camera feeds, but the rain was so heavy I could barely make out shapes moving in the darkness. Lightning flashed, illuminating 2 figures climbing over my fence. Mira and Keaton. I grabbed my phone to call 911, but the screen showed no signal. The storm had knocked out the cell towers. Another lightning flash showed them approaching my back door. Keaton had something in his hand, not a crowbar this time, but what looked like a small device. My landline was in the kitchen. I started toward it, then stopped. They were at the back door. I was trapped. Unless I used the one advantage I had over them, I knew this house better than anyone. I activated every security protocol I'd installed. Motion sensors, floodlights, automated locks, and the piece de resistance, the home automation system I'd spent 2 years perfecting. My phone buzzed with a text that somehow got through. "We just want to talk. Open the door." I typed back, "Call the police if you want to talk." "No police. This ends tonight." Through the security cameras, I watched Keaton attach his device to my back door. Some kind of electronic lockpick, sophisticated, expensive, and probably illegal. The door opened. I activated the indoor sprinkler system. Water erupted from hidden nozzles throughout the house, designed to protect against fire, but equally effective against intruders. I heard Mira scream as they were soaked instantly. "Rylan," she called out. "Turn it off. We just want to talk." I pressed the intercom button. "Then you should have called first." Through the cameras, I watched them stumble through my kitchen, dripping wet and disoriented. Keaton was cursing, trying to shield some kind of electronic device from the water. I triggered the next phase. The lights. Every bulb in the house began flashing in a random pattern, strobing between complete darkness and blinding brightness. The effect was disorienting, nauseating, and completely intentional. "This is insane," Keaton shouted. "This is home security," I replied through the speakers. "You should try knocking next time." They made it to my living room, where I'd prepared the final surprise. As soon as they stepped onto the expensive Persian rug Mira had insisted we buy, I activated the electromagnetic locks I'd installed beneath it. The metallic threads woven through the rug became magnetic anchors, locking onto anything metal they were carrying. Keaton's lock-picking device, Mira's jewelry, even the metal eyelets on their shoes. They were stuck. "What the hell?" Keaton pulled at his feet, but the magnetic field held firm. I walked downstairs, staying just outside the rug's perimeter. They looked pathetic, soaked, disoriented, trapped like insects in a web of their own making. "Evening," I said conversationally. "Lovely weather for breaking and entering." "Rylan, please," Mira said. She looked nothing like the polished marketing executive I'd married. Her hair hung in wet strands, her makeup had run, and her eyes were wild with panic. "We need to talk." We had plenty of opportunities to talk. You chose to file false police reports and forge insurance documents instead. Keaton tried to step forward, but nearly fell as the magnetic field held his shoes. "Look, man, this has gotten out of hand. We can work something out." "Can we? What did you have in mind? A nice accident? Maybe a car crash on a rainy night like this?" Mira's face went pale. "How did you? Detective Martinez is very thorough. Did you really think I wouldn't find out about the life insurance policy? The missing person report? Your research into making accidents look natural?" "It wasn't supposed to be like this," Mira whispered. "What was it supposed to be like?" She looked around my living room at the expensive furniture, the art pieces, the symbols of our successful life together. "You were supposed to disappear. Just go away. Start over somewhere else. And leave you free to collect $2 million. "It was Keaton's idea," she said quickly. "He said people do it all the time. Walk away from their old lives." "Except I'm not the type to walk away." "No," she agreed. "You're the type to fight back. We never expected that." Keaton had been working at the magnetic locks, trying to free himself. "This is kidnapping," he said. "False imprisonment." "This is citizen's arrest," I corrected. "You broke into my house with burglary tools." "We came to talk." "With electronic lockpicks and detailed research on how to stage accidents?" I pulled out my phone, which was finally getting signal again. "I don't think so." I dialed 911. 911. What's your emergency?" "This is Rylan Ventor. I'm holding 2 intruders at my residence. They broke in during the storm." "Are you in immediate danger?" I looked at Mira and Keaton, trapped and helpless in my living room. "Not anymore." While we waited for the police, I sat down across from my wife and her boyfriend, studying their faces. The storm was passing, the rain lightening to a gentle patter against the windows. "I have to ask," I said, "when did you decide I needed to disappear permanently?" Mira wouldn't meet my eyes. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" "We were going to give you a chance," Keaton said. "Let you find out about us naturally, hope you'd just leave." "And when that didn't work?" "When you started fighting back, when you ruined my business, when you made everything public." He shrugged. "We needed a more permanent solution. You were going to stage my demise." "We were going to give you an opportunity to have an accident," Mira said quietly. Something quick. Something that wouldn't hurt." I stared at my wife, this woman I'd shared a bed with, planned a future with, loved completely. You were going to have me eliminated. I was going to be free, she whispered. For the first time in my life, I was going to be free. Free to do what? Free to feel alive. Free to be with someone who made me feel like I mattered. I looked at Keaton, who was still struggling against the magnetic locks. And you? What were you going to get out of this? $2 million and a woman who appreciated me. Did you appreciate him, Mira? Really? She looked at Keaton, then back at me. I thought I did. But when everything started falling apart, when you started fighting back... She shook her head. He wanted to hurt you. Really hurt you. I just wanted you gone. There's a difference? I never wanted you to suffer. I just wanted to stop feeling invisible. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Well, I said, standing up as red and blue lights flashed through my windows. You're about to be very visible. The police arrived with Detective Martinez close behind. I deactivated the magnetic locks and watched as Mira and Keaton were arrested for breaking and entering, attempted fraud, and conspiracy. As they were led away in handcuffs, Mira looked back at me one last time. I'm sorry, she said. For which part? For all of it. For making you think you weren't enough. I watched the police cars disappear into the night, taking my wife and her boyfriend to face the consequences of their choices. Then I went back inside my house now, truly and completely, and poured myself a drink. Detective Martinez stayed behind to take my statement and collect evidence. You realize how close you came tonight, she said as we reviewed the security footage. How close? They brought more than lockpicks. We found chloroform in Keaton's bag, and a detailed plan for staging a home invasion gone wrong. I felt cold despite the warmth of my house. They were going to make it look like I was attacked by burglars. During a storm, when response times would be slow and evidence might be compromised. Very clever, if you're into that sort of thing. But they didn't count on me being prepared. They didn't count on you being unpredictable. After everyone left, I sat alone in my living room, looking at the spot where my marriage had finally, officially ended. The expensive rug was ruined by the sprinkler system, but I didn't care. Everything in this house could be replaced. Everything except the life they'd tried to take from me. My phone buzzed. A text from Jonas. Saw the news? You okay? I typed back. Better than okay. I'm free. What's next? I looked around my house, at all the symbols of the life I'd built with someone who'd never really been there. Tomorrow I'd start over. New routines, new patterns, new ways of being unpredictable. But tonight, I was just grateful to be alive. Next, I typed, I'm going to surprise myself. I set my phone aside and walked to the window, looking out at the storm-washed street. Lightning still flickered in the distance, but the thunder was fading. The predictable husband was gone forever. In his place was someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more interesting. Someone who'd learned that the best revenge wasn't getting even, it was refusing to be a victim. I raised my glass to my reflection in the window. Here's to being unpredictable. Outside, the storm passed, and the night grew quiet. Inside, I began planning my new life.